Welcome to the Awake to Ascend show, where we explore the concepts of reality and help you lift the veil of existence through thought-provoking topics and discussions designed to elevate your mind. So sit back and relax and open yourself to new possibilities. In today's episode, we're going to explore a growing topic in popularity, the reptilians. As this topic is extremely controversial and extremely vast, I want to focus today's episode on more of an introduction for those who are unfamiliar with the reptilians, as well as add some new information to those who are familiar. If this is your very first encounter with the topic of reptilians, I have to warn you, strap in, because it's going to get bumpy. This isn't just a one and done episode either. Once you awake from what you're about to learn, your perception of reality and increased awareness will shift. Just like buying a new car, or a new red car that is, once you drive it home, you suddenly notice how many other people drive the same exact red car. But instead of noticing cars, we're going to start noticing reptilians. So get ready, it's time to elevate your mind. So let's begin. All right. Reptilians. What are they? Who are they? What do they want? What evidence do we have? Are they good? Are they bad? We've got lots of questions here today, so let's dig right in. The reptilians are believed to be an alien race living on and deep inside the Earth. Reptilians have the ability to shapeshift, influence human minds, drink blood, and are considered negative entities with low vibrations that want to ultimately enslave the human race. It is said that the reptilian race is very ancient, and they have inhabited this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. The reptilians go by many names. Most common names include lizard people, draconians, dragon men, reptoids, and many more. The reptilian race is said to originate from the Draco constellation, and they are actually the Anunnaki Gods of Babylonian, as described in the ancient Sumerian culture and scripts. If you have ever researched ancient cultures, you might have come across the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are a group of deities, whom, according to ancient Sumerian cultures, created humans. The Sumerians are the oldest culture known on Earth and literally carved history into stone thousands of years before the Egyptians. The Sumerians do credit life and the creation of humans on Earth to the Anunnaki race, our ancient alien creators, if you will. This creation story information is literally, as I said, carved in stone and written on clay and precious metal tablets that we'll get to shortly. Some theorize that the Anunnaki and the reptilians are actually one and the same, but of course, no one knows for sure. From what I've researched, I personally believe that they are two separate alien species. It is said that the reptilians manipulate humans as they derive energy from human suffering. They have interests in war and cruelty. So long as humans suffer, knowingly or not, the negative energies serve the reptilians' needs. So long story short, they are ancient bloodthirsty shape-shifting aliens, responsible for much of the bad in our human existence and consciousness. It is believed that the reptilians can be neutralized through the high vibration frequencies of love and peace, light over dark, good over evil. The reptilians, also known as the Anunnaki, are not only believed to come from another solar system, but also another dimension, a multiverse, different dimensions that occupy the same space and time. These reptilians are of a low vibrational energy, whereas us humans are of a higher vibrational energy. Somehow, our two realities came to exist within the same consciousness. It is said that the humans mainly live within the third dimension, or 3D consciousness, and have the ability to transcend into a higher vibrational state of positive energy into the fifth dimension of consciousness. And the reptilians are of a fourth dimension low vibration, only having the ability to descend into our 3D consciousness, and not the ability to ascend into the fifth dimension of peace and love. But we'll save these conversations of consciousness and dimensions for another episode. One question you might be asking is, why don't we see them among us? I don't see any reptilian people. The simple answer is, because they can shapeshift. Now remember, you need to keep an open mind here. That's what Awake to Ascend is all about. Possibilities. Once you close off your mind, nothing becomes a possibility. Now, because the reptilians already resemble humans, standing on 2 feet and whatnot, it's easier for them to blend in with other similar creatures. Some theorize that reptilians might possess advanced cloaking technology, but the majority believe that because they are from another dimension, they possess the ability to manipulate the human mind and the human construct of reality, making lizard people seem like authentic humans. Think of this as the ultimate mental visual illusion. Virtual reality on super steroids. So real that it's actually real. Another question you might have at this point is, where do the reptilians live? Well, it's believed that many of these reptilians live deep inside of caves and underground. According to the well-known author and researcher of ancient alien theories, David Icke, our politicians, high-profile CEOs, and other individuals in society that seem to defy our concepts of morals and ethics are in fact reptilians. As crazy as all of this sounds, reptilians are believed to have an alien enemy, the Greys. You have most likely heard of the Greys, as modern reports and eyewitnesses describe them as little skinny aliens with big heads and all black, large, almond-shaped eyes. The Greys are pretty much the poster children of a classic alien. The Greys can be found in endless sci-fi books, TV shows, and Hollywood movies. One famous story within the ancient alien theory community is from a former military engineer, Paul Schneider. Paul's claim to alien fame took place in the 1990s, in which he traveled the globe sharing his terrifying encounter with the Greys. Paul shared his personal story on recorded video, speaking events, and conferences, all of which can be found on YouTube. Paul states that in 1979, as a military engineer and geologist, he survived an underground battle between the US military and a race of aliens called the Greys. All of this took place at Dulce Military Base in New Mexico. Phil Schneider was contracted by the US government to build DUMBs, D-U-M-B, Deep Underground Military Bases. Now, according to Phil, the US government has had a long-time relationship with aliens, as the two have been exchanging information for a long time. Additionally, a so-called black budget funds these top-secret projects. There are well over 100 underground facilities, DUMBs, throughout the country. Remember, Phil built these, so this is first-hand witness testimony. This is not theory. These DUMBs are connected to underground cities, and travel between them is made possible via magnetic levitation trains. Phil is not the only one who validates these military bases underground. If you look for this information on DUMBs, underground cities, levitation trains online, you will find additional details and eyewitness testimonies. Phil is just the first one in our modern day history to come forward and do the whole circuit of conferences and video testimony. Very interesting. I encourage you to go ahead and take a look at that. Now, in 1979, Phil states that he killed 2 gray aliens while working on the construction of the DUMB at Dulce. While working over 2 miles deep into the ground, Phil and roughly 30 other engineers and contractors surprised an alien base of Greys, in which a firefight took place, and Phil claims that he shot 2 of them. He shot 2 Greys. Phil himself was injured by an advanced weapon that required him to receive radiation isolation therapy treatments for over a year. Phil claims that in total, between contractors, engineers, and armed military personnel, there were 66 human deaths that occurred during this 1979 firefight with Grey aliens. So, according to Phil, we know that his story takes place in 1979, and he began sharing his story in the 1990s. So, where is Phil today? Well, Phil knew immediately in the 1990s when he was sharing his story that his life was at risk. So, at the beginning of his lectures, he would state, and I quote, "I feel directly threatened, and before I am killed, I must reveal this material. If they ever say I committed suicide, you will know that I was murdered." End quote. On January 17th, 1996, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment. The official cause of death? Suicide. According to his ex-wife Cynthia, she received a phone call informing her that Phil had died in his apartment from an apparent suicide, most likely a week before his body was even discovered. At the time of the removal of his body, they informed her that the cause of death was poor blood flow to the brain, also known as a stroke. After news of Phil's death, his ex-wife Cynthia went to his apartment, where she discovered that all of Phil's research material had vanished, his lecture materials gone, his alien medals and math books and photographs of UFOs gone. Everything related to his life's work at this point has just vanished. Interestingly enough, what remained was all things that we would consider valuable. Jewelry, mineral specimens, even gold and cash, personal documents were all still at his apartment. Phil's official autopsy states that he committed suicide by wrapping a rubber catheter hose 3 times around his neck and half-knotting it in the front. According to Cynthia, this was impossible for Phil to hold because his left hand was missing fingers and his shoulder had extreme lack of mobility due to arthritis. So, for this autopsy report to say that he committed suicide in this manner, Cynthia knew otherwise. Additionally, Cynthia added to her statements that she knew for a fact that Phil did not want to kill himself. And if he did, he had several prescribed medications and guns that he could easily access. So in the end, Cynthia states that Phil was extremely religious and did not believe in suicide. So, in her mind, he was murdered. He did not commit suicide. So, did Phil commit suicide? Well, the evidence points to no. The evidence points to murder. But from a coroner report and from a police report perspective, they say that he committed suicide. I'm not going to judge here, but maybe you should. Take a step back, look at what we've just discussed, and answer the question for yourself. Do you think Phil committed suicide, or do you think he was murdered? You be the judge. Although Phil's story is not about reptilians, it is about extraterrestrials, aliens, on Earth, deep within Earth, just as the reptilian race is said to thrive. If we can validate the existence of one alien race, we can follow the breadcrumbs to possibly thousands of alien races. Not only do we have eyewitness accounts in modern history of alien encounters, we also have ancient scriptures and text revealing our ancient alien creation story, This information is and has been in our faces, and yet somehow we chose not to acknowledge and share this information. It's as if someone did not want us to know our true human existence history. So, how do we know about the reptilians, historically speaking? We know that cultures including, but not limited to, Sumeria, Babylonia, India, China, Japan, Mexico, and Central America have worshipped and feared reptilian gods. Even in today's age, the dragon and serpent signify divine heritage and royalty in Asian countries, while in the West, the serpent represents wisdom and knowledge. Even the American Medical Association logo in the United States is two serpents coiled around a staff. Do you think all of this is pure coincidence? Stories of reptile-like creatures with webbed claw-like hands, golden eyes, and vertical slit pupils and scaly greenish-brown skin is not traced back to a single source, but rather emerged independently throughout history through different parts of the world by cultures who were separated by extreme distance, extreme climates, and oceans, not knowing that the other one even existed. And yet somehow they share similar, if not the exact same stories and artwork of a reptilian race. Still a coincidence? As found within the clay tablets of the Dead Sea Scrolls, dated from the 3rd century BC, are ancient translations and recorded history dating back 240,000 years that specifically reference reptilian beings. One such story, as noted in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Sumerian king, or god, Anu. Anu was the god of the extraterrestrial race referred to as the Anunnaki, along with his sons Enki and Enlil. These accounts of the multiple extraterrestrial gods, more specifically the chief god Anu's son Enki, as well as other Anunnaki, were described in the Dead Sea Scrolls as having a reptilian appearance. So, according to some of the most ancient known texts in existence, we have mentions of Anunnaki gods who were literally described as reptilians. I'm willing to bet you never learned any of this in school. An interesting story that I came across in my research of the reptilians dates back to 1934. On January 29th, 1934, on the front page of the LA Times, ran a feature article about the search for a 5,000-year-old city said to be built under the streets of LA. This ancient city was said to be inhabited by none other than lizard people. To summarize this 1934 article for you, G. Warren Schufelt, a geological mining engineer, with the aid of a mysterious radio-directed type apparatus, discovers maps out of what he believes to be a series of tunnels and chambers located under the streets of Los Angeles. A man calling himself Chief Little Greenleaf of the Hopi Indians relates an ancient tale to Schufelt about a lost civilization of the lizard people, also known as the Snake Brothers, in which they dug shelters underground to escape a terrible cataclysm. Schufelt then theorizes that he has in fact discovered the lost catacomb city of this ancient race and seeks to uncover the labyrinth of tunnels to discover what treasures that it may contain. From what we know today, eventually Schufelt publicly theorizes that the current city is built atop of subterranean remains of a more ancient civilization. It is his belief that the civilization was far more advanced both intellectually and scientifically than the current human civilization. He also believes that these advanced lizard people dug the tunnels with the aid of powerful chemicals, not digging equipment. He also claims that gold deposits are actually records of origin of mankind and the advanced knowledge of the lizard people civilization. Several stories then circulate that the detected gold deposits were actually to be Spanish treasure, buried beneath the streets during the colonial times, which were rumors of nothing more. Several months later, the money and general interest for these digs just dried up, and Schufeld's mysterious radio device disappears without a trace. The city shuts down his operations and fills in the holes. The lizard people, also known as the Snake Brothers, aka the Lost Civilization, was claimed to be a highly advanced civilization with the knowledge of the origins of man, as well as the incredible scientific knowledge it holds. The golden tablets that Schufelt claims were gold deposits he was detecting were actually golden tablets. These gold tablets were described as slabs of gold, 4 feet long, 14 inches wide, and are said to contain the records of the origins of the human race and the history of modern man in the Americas. Upon further research, I was unable to locate any additional information regarding this Hopi Indian insider, Little Chief Greenleaf, other than his so-called English name was L. Macklin. But what I did find is that there is something called the Hopi Snake Clan. The Hopi Snake Clan performed what's called the Snake Dance Ritual and has been performed since the 19th century on the Hopi Mesas of Arizona, in which participants handle a mass amount of venomous and non-venomous snakes. Hopi people had a variety of clans, snake clans, spider clans, but more interestingly were the Hopi stories of what the Hopi called the Ant People. The Hopi Indians considered these ant people their friends and directly linked them back to the Anunnaki and sky god Anu. The Hopis described these ant people as extraterrestrial beings that came from the underground. The ant people were claimed to be saviors of the Hopis, as it is said that the ant people took the Hopi people underground to save them from extinction. It is said that the ant people taught the Hopi how to survive the extreme cataclysms in which they endured through, as described in the Sumerian text and even the Bible, also known as the Great Flood. Even more interesting, the Hopi translation for the word ant is Anu, and the Hopi translated word for friend is Naki, meaning that the Hopi word for ant people, also known as ant friend, is translated into Anunnaki. Hopefully, you are now starting to see some dots connecting. So let's move on and bring into the conversation famed astronomer Carl Sagan. In 1977, Carl Sagan published a book entitled The Dragons of Eden, in which Sagan speculates the reptilian origins of the human race and the evolution of the human brain as found within fossil records. In 1978, Sagan's book won the Pulitzer Prize. Sagan is quoted in that the evidence of our reptilian origins appear to be enormous and abundant, meaning he believes the evidence of our human reptilian or extraterrestrial origins has always been in front of us. We just have to open our eyes. Have you ever heard or even yourself made a reference to a part of the human brain as the reptilian brain? Of course you have. Do you think this is a coincidence? A core part of the brain scientifically known as the R complex, also known as the reptilian complex, refers to our aggressive human behavior, territorialism, ritualistic actions, and the establishment of social hierarchies. Is it just pure coincidence that we find constant reptilian connections linking our ancient human past all the way through to modern-day science? Personally, I believe there is much more to this than just coincidence. Outside of you and I, we are not alone in our quest for information and explanation of the lizard people. Thanks to modern technology, I can leverage search data trends inside of Google that give us a better understanding into what other people are exploring and do they believe in the existence of the reptilian race and what's their curiosity. Having access to this Google data takes us back as far as 2004, and it's pretty obvious that all over the globe, humans are searching for information relating to the reptilians and the lizard people. Let's kind of explore that for a second. Using Google's trend data and search history, I can see that in 2010, there is a significant increase in searches related to the lizard people, at which point total search volume doubles over the next 5 years and has remained rather high since. Let's dumb that down a second. What does that mean? That means that a butt-ton of people daily go to Google and they search for information on lizard people, the reptilian race, reptilian hominoids, and many other variations in search terms. At the end of 2020, there was another massive lift in curiosity and searches performed on Google as it relates to the reptilian, and it still holds strong to this first part of 2021. Could this recent increase be due to the political climate of the United States in the past few months? Now, if you recall, it is theorized that the reptilians hold political office and other offices of power. Such negative energy and actions are noticed by the general population. It is possible that more people are indeed awakening and connecting these dots, such as hatred and lack of morals and lack of ethics within the political community, and all of this to be tied back and associated with the reptilians. I don't know. Sure, I'm making a slight assumption here, but if you've been following me up to this point, you're definitely starting to make this connection, and you can see how the political negativity in the political climate in the United States is tying back to the reptilians. Now, for a moment, I'm going to go through some of this data according to Google, and you can do this yourself right now. Just go to trends, trends.google.com, and type in the search terms. It's pretty self-explanatory. So as we look back what's been going on over the past couple of years, I just want to point out a few things as it relates to search terms of lizard people, reptilian race, reptilian humanoids, and etc. So we can see that from a country perspective, the most popular countries that are searching these terms are India, Singapore, Ireland, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Malaysia, Canada, and Norway. Now that we know the hotspot countries, what are the popular countries that people are searching in, let's take a look at what types of terms they're searching for. We have lizard people conspiracy, lizard man, lizard people theory, what are lizard people, lizard people proof, lizard king, Illuminati, who are lizard people, what are the lizard people. And this list goes on to include reptilian alien race, reptilians, reptilian race on Earth, and it further breaks down into different, different languages. If I drill down into the United States specifically, I can see that the following states are of high interest into these search terms. We have New Hampshire, South Carolina, West Virginia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Vermont, North Carolina, Maine, Idaho, Nebraska, and we can see that we have almost identical popularity in what they're searching for within the United States. The lizard people conspiracy, lizard people theory, what are lizard people, proof of lizard people, reptilian race on Earth, lizard people, reptilians, reptilian people, reptile. So it just goes on and on. What this tells us is that people all over the world have high levels of curiosity into the lizard people, the reptilian race, the Anunnaki, and this curiosity is sparking, and they're researching, they're digging, they're asking questions, and people want this information. If they didn't care, they wouldn't be searching for it, and we have data directly from Google, which is open to anybody who wants to see it, that is telling us that people are constantly looking for this information. That in itself is extremely interesting to me, which ties me back to saying, is this all just a coincidence? You got to think about this. Is it? Let's go beyond ancient history and modern science, because the reptilian belief spills over heavily into the spiritual community. The belief of the reptilian race is not found just within the ancient alien theorist and UFO community. Spiritualists, psychics, healers, mediums, and others closely tied to the metaphysical and spiritual realm have strong convictions in the existence of a reptilian race. In some cases, mediums have been known to connect with reptilian consciousness to deliver messages to the human consciousness. One such individual in the spiritual community, in which I suggest you familiarize yourself with, is Michaela Sheldon. Her name is spelled Micheila, and her last name is spelled Sheldan. She can be found all over YouTube as well as her own personal website. Michaela is an intuitive and has the ability to channel and receive messages from angel guides, multidimensional beings, collective consciousness, and more. She speaks of the reptilians in some of her videos and is quite interesting, which is why I'm recommending it. I know some of you at this point think that all of this sounds a bit like the Twilight Zone, but realize for a moment that just because you cannot see something or comprehend it at first doesn't mean that it does not exist. No matter how far-fetched this may sound, closing off your mind to the unknown serves you no good. Deniability is not an excuse. Let's think of religion for just a moment. We have Islamic, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and many more religions, all of which have millions of followers. However, none of these followers have ever witnessed the factual existence of their god or gods, and only their belief and their blind faith in their existence. And yet these believers will blindly jump off a cliff in the name of their gods without hesitation. As a matter of fact, still to this day, wars are started in the name of God. Last time I checked, belief and blind faith does not win court cases. In today's world, doing so deems you pretty much a nutbag conspiracy theorist. Of course, this religious faith is based on the stories and scriptures that are thousands of years old. So these stories and books and Bibles must be true, right? Because we have them, and they say that Jesus and Muhammad and whoever else walked the earth and performed miracles, right? So it must be true because it's written. Now, using that logic, I would like to point out Exhibit B, the Dead Sea Scrolls and the tablets, and other historical evidence that is just as old, if not thousands of years older, that directly links modern-day religion, the beliefs, and the gods to the originating source of the reptilian Anunnaki alien race and the human creation story. Why in the world would this information be hidden from you? Well, it's not hidden from you. As humans, we simply choose the path of least resistance, which in our case is for someone else to tell us what to believe. We have been spoon-fed our history, and our history has been cherry-picked to suit the needs of the storyteller. Now, which story is easier to sell to the masses? A middle-aged carpenter with a long beard that turns out to be the son of God is sacrificed on a cross to pay for our human sins? Or B, an alien race from the vast regions of an infinite universe come to Earth seeking precious metals and decides to create hybrid life forms, aka humans, as a slave race in efforts to harvest the precious metals, in which this new hybrid race revolts through the acquisition of knowledge and is eventually left to its own civilizational demise to potentially one day achieve infinite knowledge and intergalactic travel, ultimately joining the ranks of other advanced civilizations. Both stories, religion and reptilian overlords, are factually part of our human history. Our so-called leaders and wise men throughout history have simply cherry-picked this information, and we never questioned it. However, the reptilian story comes thousands of years before religion does. We have the artifacts, we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have the Anunnaki story. All of this came before Jesus and Muhammad, all the major religions. It originates with the Anunnaki. As a matter of fact, what we call modern-day religion is deeply embedded and ingrained with ancient alien influences. Once you dig into religion and start asking questions, you will see nothing but alien influences, and that extraterrestrials are the basis of our religions. Just think with me for a moment here, that modern-day religion is indeed a form of obedience and control over the people. Do as I say, or you will go to hell for eternity. You don't want to face the wrath of God, do you? You see, if God is love, why do religions tell us to fear God? And if we don't fear God, we're all damned to hell. Well, spoiler alert, there is no such place as hell. Hell is a fictional destination. It was created by religious leaders to control the people, and is still being used to control people today. So, what are you? You are an eternal being that cannot be destroyed. As humans, we have been misled and fed generational lies and false constructs of reality to hide the truth from us. We are all slaves to either countries, governments, corporations, institutions, debt systems, and just evil groups of people that want nothing more than to control us through fear. The most relevant and current example of control through fear that I can give you is COVID-19. Now, I know this might push buttons for some people. It's a hot topic. And what we will do is save this conversation of COVID-19 for another day. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want you to make some connections and ask some questions and internalize, really, the concept of control through fear with COVID-19. Think about that just for a minute. As the old saying goes, the truth will set you free. It is up to each of us at our own pace, in our own time, to uncover the truth, to share our knowledge and move on to our next soul's journey. This human experience is just that. It's an experience, and it's going to end very soon. All I want to do is help you understand that through knowledge, you can achieve the greatest human experience possible, which is heaven on earth, true peace and love. I want to continue this thought for just one more minute. If everyone on this planet possessed true peace and love, how would you describe the world? I would describe this as heaven on earth. How about you? As we come to an end on today's discussions, I hope you have opened your mind, you've learned something new, or at a minimum, you were positively entertained to some degree. This discussion on the Anunnaki and the Reptilian Race is far from over. There is much more to explore. We've just uncovered the tip of the Anunnaki and Reptilian iceberg. Personally, yes. Based on artifacts, the spiritual community, historical literature that is literally carved in stone, I do believe that there is some form of validity here into the existence of the reptilian race, all of which warrants the continual investigation and truth-finding research to further validate and authenticate the official existence of the reptilians and other alien life forms. Just because it sounds crazy or you personally have never witnessed a lizard person firsthand doesn't mean it's not true. If our reaction to such is denial based on obscurity, I would call that decision ignorance. We have ancient historical records and artifacts no different than the Holy Bible, and that the Anunnaki and the reptilian races are in fact real. No one questions religion, but maybe they should. And I have a feeling that from this day forward, you will start questioning these types of things as well. With that being said, we are now at the official end of the Awake to Ascend show for today. Until we meet again, continue keeping your mind and your heart open. The universe is truly limitless, and so are you. Cheers.